I'm Stuart Taylor. I'm a management consultant. I'm an associate director in the business advisory team with Arcadis. I don't remember a particular age or time, but I understand it emerged around nursery school, so 3 or 4. And so it must have been early in primary school, and I remember going to speech therapy at around that age. So certainly during primary school, I was aware I had a stammer. It was quite a small primary school, and I just don't remember anybody making anything of it. So it's interesting. It's only after you're exposed to, I guess, any kind of larger context that you start to think about, oh, I've got a stammer, that must mean something. Well, it started when I went to the primary school, which was just over the fence at the bottom of the garden. So that was a helpful start. I lived in an area which had the 11 plus. So I took that. I went to a grammar school in town and stayed on there to do A-levels, and then decided that I wanted to study geography at university. And so I managed to get a place at the University of Leeds studying geography, and learned a little bit about geography there, but also learned a lot about life and lots of different types of people, and lots of new experiences. And then not that long ago, just a few years ago, I decided to go back to formal education, studying international development. So that was an opportunity to blow the cobwebs off those parts of my brain that hadn't had that academic test for a long time. I think it was a show that I'd loved for so long. I didn't really think about the details after the opportunity arose to be on it, and I was able to get through the different steps necessary. It was just excitement, I think, and it was only quite soon before the filming that I realised, hang on a minute, I've got a stammer. If I was to stammer after I pressed the buzzer, and I know the answer, and Jeremy Paxman's looming down on me, I prepared like I prepare for any event where I know I'll be speaking in public, and it's to make sure I'm like on top of the content, on top of my material. In the case of University Challenge, that meant learning all of the planetary moons in the solar system and spotting up on the Prime Ministers of Canada. In terms of just ensuring that I was in the right headspace, it just meant to get into a positive thought spiral. I always find that very useful. You know, to think, this is really where I want to be, this is what I want to be doing, and to really be able to back yourself, and also to be able to draw upon the tools and techniques that you have to be able to get through any of those tricky stammering occasions if they occurred. And something that helped is I had a great team, the rest of the team on the University Challenge, and it was just so comfortable, it was so easy, it was so relaxed. All of the production, actually, it felt like that as well. So I think it was only after we walked out onto the set and you sat down and you need to press the buzzer to test it, and then there is Roger Tilling, who is the chap that says, "Taylor, open," sat in a booth over there. It was only after we tested that it started to feel pretty real. It took me a little while to work out exactly what I wanted to do, so I was temping for quite a while. I realised I wanted to work for a water company because I did geography, had an environmental background, that was a passion, and the water company was an opportunity to apply that in a large organisation, learn some of the business skills which I felt would be important. So I eventually got a role with a water company, and I was there for 5 years, joined on their graduate scheme, had a number of different roles in different parts of the business there. And whilst I was there, I saw some people who, they weren't part of any of the teams that I knew, and it turns out they were the consultants. And the work that they were doing seemed to be very interesting, and basically what the consultants were doing, it was trying to solve some of the business's challenges that actually they were really difficult, and the people in the business weren't necessarily the best placed to be able to solve them themselves. So they would look to bring in some outside support, you know, to bring that external viewpoint, to be able to bring a view as to what's worked well in other organisations, to bring in a view as to how to apply that to an organisation such as I was in. And so eventually I joined a consultancy which still had quite a technical focus, had a strong presence in the water industry, but that helped me to start to see some of those challenges in organisations as something that I was actually able to help to address. And so that led to me joining Arcadis 6 years ago. And something that's interesting is that each of those interviews, I think I was at a different stage of, you know, the stammering cycle. You know, typically I find that it comes in seasons. Sometimes you find that you're more fluent and you don't have to try as hard, but sometimes you find, oh, I'm really having to put a lot of energy into this, experiencing a lot more blocks. And I remember at the Arcadis interview, I remember I was experiencing quite a few blocks. And I remember there was a point that in there that I just had to stop, and I stopped an answer. And I remember thinking, it's a bit of a fork in the road. Either I could find this quite disheartening, or I could say, right, I'll try that again. And I did. And I think that's kind of, in a microcosm, the situation that all of us as stammers find ourselves in. It's like, yeah, every single stammer is an opportunity to either find it disheartening or to pick yourself up and to try again and to get into a positive mindset. So certainly that has certainly been a theme through work, but also I think there's something about interviews that properly forces it home. And I think the great thing about now, as opposed to say 30, 20, even 10 years ago, is if as a stammerer you walk into an interview, or if it's online, it's like, you know that you've got the law on your side. And if it's an organisation that's worth working for, they will have a policy and they'll be shouting about it, that they have an inclusive culture. They will be falling over themselves to make sure that they can do everything they can to help you. And if they're not doing that, then you should probably have a think if that's really a company that you want to work for. I would say it's okay to be curious about your own stammer and, you know, to non-judgmentally just to really try things out, to test them, and to not always think of it in kind of negative terms. I know that's easy to say and hard to do, but I think I would say to my young self, yeah, I'm a curious person, and I think it would be great to be curious about it. Firstly, because that helps on a practical kind of level, and it helps you to manage the situations that you find yourself in and think of approaches which might be appropriate. But kind of secondly, because it is a fundamental part of you. So understand it, test it, start to, yeah, embrace it. It is a curious thing. And I think definitely the first part of it is to just try to non-judgmentally really own it. The second thing I'd say is some of the best communicators I've met have had a stammer. So yes, there may be blocks. Yes, there may be elongated vowel sounds. Yes, there may be tics. Yes, there may be tension, but that's not where communication comes from. Communication comes from active listening. It comes from really understanding an audience. It comes from really generating empathy. It comes from tailoring the things that you say to the situation. It's not about a stammer. So it's not important in how great a communicator you are, except for how you feel about it. And it's a cliche, but it really shouldn't stop you doing anything. Some things, they might take a little bit longer, but through owning it in terms of yourself, then you're taking control. And also something you can take control of is situations. So you can educate people, even if it's just informing them, I have a stammer, so this might take a little bit longer than you're expecting. Fine. That's you taking control of it, and that can take the pressure off of you. It helps other people as well. Own it. I know that's easy to say.
Well, no, you're right.
It's the hardest thing to do. I mean, and it's taken me a number of decades to get there, but it's true. And I think, is it something that I was able to do, to own earlier on? Probably. But I came to it slightly later on. There is no reason why you shouldn't get your dream job because you've got a stammer. If you don't work hard enough, that might prove to be a reason. But yeah, it just means that you need to work out your route to it. And I've found openness around my stammer has really helped. Ever since I've done that, I've found I think a lot less about my stammer. I care a lot less about my stammer. And I found that it kind of helps other people as well. So that's allowed me to take control of a situation. So those are things that allow anybody to take control of a situation. The other thing I'd say is there are people that stammer in all workplaces. And I didn't know that until I went into them. And that's because it's not something a lot of people talk about. So as a consultant, I've had the opportunity to go into a lot of organisations. And in almost all those organisations, including airports, aviation companies, national government, local government, a number of private companies, if it's a large enough company, over 100 people, there are people that stammer in there. And so that's not something that you see unless you see inside. So there are stammerers out there. And I think that's kind of part of the challenge. It's to show that that's the case, because it is true. So there is nothing that you can't achieve that a person who hasn't got a stammer can. It's just a case of approaching it in your own way.